Mastering electronic dance music.
Hey guys, welcome back to Mastering EDM with Logic Pro, and this is the fourth video in my series introducing music theory. And today I'm going to be covering arps, bass lines, and the top notes of chords and stuff like that. And we're going to basically figure out, putting all this music theory we've learned so far together, how do we start making a song? So the first thing, I've already done something here, bad me, and I didn't show you guys what I did initially and walk you through it. But really, it's actually simple. All I did was I chose one note and I spaced it on the offbeat. So it's very simple there. I just have one note that's going over. And this essentially means that this is the key I'm going to be working in. So I have this note here, it's G. That means I'm going to be working in a key of G because I'm starting my bass line essentially on the first note that I want the key to be in. That's generally how it's going to run in EDM. The first note of your bass line is almost always the root note of your key. So keeping that in mind, I have here my G note, and I need to decide, do I want it in a major or a minor scale? I want a minor scale. So let me draw in a minor scale here really quick. So we have first we have a whole step, then we have a half step, then we have a whole step, oopsie, that's a whole step, and then we have a whole step, and then we have another half step, and then we have a whole step, and then a whole step, and then we're back to this one. So that's our minor scale there. And let me mute this so that it doesn't cause us any issues here in playing back. But this is basically a reference. What are we working off of? So now that I have that, I can decide, what do I want to do with my bass line? Okay, first I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it down an octave so that I know more so when I go up and down what notes are available for me. And so I have this. So what I want to try is, I want to try to do something like that. So it goes da, 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 except for I want to make this lower. So I know that this one is definitely available for me to use. So let me try to see what that sounds like. So that already sounds like an okay bass line. It's nothing amazing and nothing groundbreaking, but it already sounds like a pretty good bass line. So what am I starting to do here? Right now what I've done is I've dropped this down a bit. So now if I start throwing things over top of this like a chord progression, it'll start to follow my bass line for the most part. So let's be a little bit more creative. I'm going to expand this out and double the size of it so we have a little more working room. And pull this out here, grab this, and I'm actually going to, instead of doing a double note there, I'm just going to go like this. So we want it, I'm going to start it and then have it go up and then down, just because that's how I feel like doing it today. And then I can pull this up to, and then let's pull it back down. Cause this one's in the key, so I could, whoops, try that again. So I could, let's put it here. And then I'm gonna pull this one. I think that's in key. Yes, that should be in key. So it's just basically a very simple bass line. If I start to do, like if I change the actual synth itself so it sounds a little bit more interesting, and if I make these notes faster and then add sidechain compression, it'll sound a lot cooler. But for simplicity's sake, because I got a lot of cover in this one, I'm going to leave it like this. Now I'm going to duplicate this here, create a new MIDI region, and I'm going to start showing you how to make arpeggiated sequences, because these are quite a bit harder to work with when you're just drawing them out off the bat, because you're bouncing around a lot of notes. You kind of got to know what you're doing. So I'm going to switch to, let's switch to ES2, and I'm I'm going to pull up a sequence element, and we'll just do crunchy trance because this will sound interesting. So so I know that my root key is a G, and I'm in or my root note is G and I'm in G major. So let's draw a, or not G major, G minor. So let's draw a chord here for that. So wow, that's really low. Let's pull this up really high. Excuse me, sorry about that. And I'm going to pull up ES2 and change something here. There we go. That's what I was looking for. And so we know that we need to make a G minor chord here because this is a G minor scale. So instead of actually referencing off that, I know that a G minor chord is 2 gaps and then 3 gaps. So that's my G minor chord right off the bat. Except if you'll notice, it only sounds like one note. And that's because this is in mono, which means it can only play one note at a time. So what I'm going to do here is take this chord and just spread it out. So it only plays one note at a time. And I'm going to pull this one here too. Actually, just create one now. And you see what I've done there is all I did was take the chord and move it so it's not playing at the same time, but it's playing in a sequence, and then you get this sound. And if you listen, because this is a G minor chord and the root note is G here also, they'll sound good together. And now all I have to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and I know this one is a C sharp note, so that means I need to take this, move the note to C sharp, A, B, C sharp, and this may or may not work because I don't know if this is supposed to be a minor or major chord. Right now it's a minor chord because I copied the same structure here. Now the question is a minor chord valid? So right now we have C sharp, E, and G sharp. Is that in our key? We have C sharp, obviously, E, and G sharp. So it is in key. So watch, I could do this. All I did was pull this up and go. But that kind of sounds off. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to do an inversions now because I don't like it going up that high. So I'm going to pull this down an octave here, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did before, except for fake like I'm using a different chord. So what I'm going to do here is move all this over one note, move all of this over one note, and then duplicate down here so we have the same thing. And then you could go back to this one and do the same thing and just continue working off that. So this one, I don't particularly like the sound of this chord, this arpeggiated sequence. Okay, so let's see what I can do here. Instead of just changing the chord completely, I'm actually just gonna move one note, I think. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't like the sound of this at all. But you would notice if you're like doing a darker style of trance, and then all you have to do is just take delay, stereo delay, and let's load this up with delay. 75, and then you have. So all I did basically with this one is I had the same structure from before, except for instead of being on G like it was originally, I pulled it down, the root note, down to what this was on. Now that sometimes won't end up with a very good chord, and that's kind of the case that happened, but I'm not too worried right now because this isn't the type of tone I want to go for anyway. I'm just kind of making something up to show you guys. a lot of the tone is it develops from your initial idea, and this one, if you notice, if you just listen to the bass line that I made. So it sounds like a kind of dark sound already. So adding stuff to it, it'll kind of expand off of that. So if you want a brighter sound, then you need to, your initial idea needs to be based off of that. But yeah, you get the idea. That's arpeggios. You basically just get a chord and you rip it apart and you dance around. Now you could do completely different orders. So like here, let me go back to the first one. Let me just loop all this here so that you get it consistently. And okay, here we go. Now what I could do instead is have it go, let me delete these so we just have our original chord structure here. And I could have this one go like this and this one go like this and then do that. And it sounds slightly different than this one. So they're rather the same though. And then of course you could do inversions and go like pull this one down an octave. Whoops, actually that's not what I wanted. What I wanted was to do this. So it kind of gives you a lower note at the bottom there. And then, you know, you could pull this down an octave, see what that does. And so that's making simple arpeggios. And there is another thing you could do here, and that is, so this is C or G major, should be, or G minor. So it needs to be like that. And then MIDI effects, and then if you go to arpeggiator here, then all you have to do is you key in your chord and you just let it sit, and then you just tweak the settings of this and it'll create an arpeggio for you. So you see there, it's got, basically it could turn any synth or any instrument into an arpeggiation just based off any chord. And if I add one more note here, it'll give it even more variety. If I take that out again, you'll see back to where it was. If you put it in there, it sounds a lot better though. Okay. Anyway, so that's the arpeggiator and how you can work with that. Now, top notes I was talking about, and what that essentially is that's for, you'll use it a lot with super saws. So let me switch around some of this stuff and the way this is laid out here. I think I should be able to grab a superstar here. I know one, and preset, let's EDM presets, and it should be, here we go. And then I just need to go tweak one thing right here, stereo, and that should be good. Make that stereo too. Okay, so now this should be a super saw here. I probably turned down the volume since I know it's going to be loud. And let's hear what it sounds like. So that's really high. So so it's basic super saw. It doesn't sound all that amazing because it's just one note. But if I take this and I start repeating it, here we go. Ooh, sorry about that, guys. This thing consumes a lot of resources very fast. Let's shorten the length. And turn that down to 16. I don't know why it's doing... Oh, it's running out of voices already. So, 24. Try that. So we have this chord here that we talked about. Not all that amazing. It's the same chord that we've used before. I'm going to spread it out like I showed you before by just grabbing that middle one and bringing it down. And if you start to add notes up here, you could have what sounds like a lead. So... it doesn't have enough. Okay, sorry, this might not sound too good here just because it's running out of voices, so it actually can't play. It can't play all the notes I'm adding. I might need to switch to ES2. So now you really hear what's going on, so all I did basically was I took a chord and then I just found random keys that I know are in, or random notes that I know are in the scale, and I just put them on top, and then you get what sounds like it's changing chords, but it's not. And I'm gonna try something really cool here, and because I know that I could have those two. And then I'm going to bring it down and see if I could get this to sound right. Typically, it takes me a while to get it right. So if I mess up first time, that's because I pretty much always mess up the first time. So I know I'm going... So... Whoops. Let me grab all of them. So that shows you basically all I did was change. So instead of having the notes changing between these two, I changed the chord underneath of it. I just shifted it down a little bit, and what I get here is I have that same sort of going up and down style, except for now it's with a different chord underneath, so it gives it a different tone. I could even move these up a little bit. I'd have to be careful though that because some of these notes are gonna have to be shifted around. This one I know is not gonna be in key anymore, so let's try that. Yeah, sorry for all the crackling. This, oh, that's why. Duh. If I set this to good, then it'll definitely work. Obviously, you could tell there was a quality difference there. And then if I just throw a compressor on here and do some sidechain compression briefly, then all I have to do is send this to buzz 20, and nope, I want to take the output off so it doesn't double the sound there, and then sidechain buzz 20, and set this to graph here. I want a low threshold, high ratio, no knee, and no, let's put a knee on it, low attack, and then pull up the release just a tad bit, and then we'll see how this sounds. this kick has way too much tail, so it's pretty much it's losing a lot of the sound here. Let me just cut down the length of this really quick using a fade. Fade out. Pull it up there. Okay. So you can tell there, it sounds pretty good. Now, obviously, I don't want this to be on draft. I want it to be on better at least, but then it starts to really use up my CPU since I'm recording too. So that's really, if you just add these notes on the top of chords, you could really get some interesting stuff, and it sounds very nice. But you know, like I said, all I have here is with this is I just chose one note that was spaced a reasonable amount, and then I just went up the scale. That, oh, by the way, I was just guessing because I wasn't 100% sure with what I was doing. I was just guessing. But you just choose a note that's slightly higher, and then you go up the scale, or you bounce around the scale in any order that you like. And if you don't like something that shows up, just change the note, and then you could get a sound that sounds closer to what you want. And then obviously what you do for here is, now that I have this going, I want a bass line under it. How do I figure out what notes to use for the bass line? Well, I know that this chord was structured off G, so I can guess, since the middle one is G and that's what this is structured off of, I can guess that this chord is an F chord. So I could double check by doing this. If I pull this up by 12 notes, then I could tell. And that looks like, so that's a 5-note difference. That means this needs to go down here. So it's 7-note difference. And I'm rather confused here because it's basically a chord that's been inverted considerably. Either that or it's actually instead of based off of 7, it's based off of 5. So that's why it sounds different. But it is a F chord here. So let me go back, put everything back where it was. So basically, to figure out what a chord is, you just make it so everything is as close as possible, and then you look at which one is the bottom one. And the way you smash them up is by moving which octave they're in, and so just basically pulling that up or down. So this one is F, which means that I need to get the bass line up here, and it's as simple as, when you find the chord, you just take the note and you move it to that note. A, B, here we go, F. So that's down. And if I actually turn this on, now the bass and the synth, the instrument style does not match. That's part of the reason that it's clashing here. See, all I had to do, it sounded musically off, but all I had to do was change the instrument, and then it went back. So, and you can see I already have something that's rather solid, and I would actually be interested in making a song off of this. But really, all I did was I just took a chord and repeated it at an 8th note interval here, and then I just added a couple things to spice it up. And you could just move this stuff around to get even cooler stuff. I got an idea. Let's do this. This will be interesting. I got an idea here. And then, so I pulled this one out. And then I believe I pulled this one out. So it sounds like this. Let me see if I can do this really quick. What I wanted to do is this. Here we go. Backspace, move that. Backspace, move that. Here we go. So really, I think I'm going to save this project because I like how this is turning out. And you've seen basically how I start constructing all this. Now, actually, in my next video, I was planning on putting it all together and talking about how instruments fit better with different progressions and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to cover it in this video instead. So this will be episode 5 also. Sorry guys that I didn't split this into 2, but it just kind of works better this way. So what I've done here is I basically showed you how from getting one note and just moving it around, you could come up with a very, very, very unique chord progression, and then you just get this. And you'll even notice I already actually have the bass line sounding good because all I did was I had to take, despite the fact that this is a lot of notes right here, if I go back to here, that's a lot of notes. So how do you choose which note for the bass line? All I did was I remembered which chord I based it off of, and then I just had to throw in the notes for the bass line based on that chord. And the root note of that chord. That's all I had to do. It was really simple. And so really, it's not a very difficult process. The hard process is creativity and taking something and then, coming up with ideas on how to change something. Like when I changed it so it wasn't just like this, and I made it spaced. That spacing this is a spacing I use in a lot of my projects. I basically have a gap of 2, gap of 2, gap of 2, gap of 2, and then a gap of 1. And that's a very common spacing that I've seen in quite a few chord progressions. But I've never tried alternating it like this, having one in this slower format, one in this faster format. That sounds pretty cool. So now the question is, what instrument can I use for this? And I'm going to actually show you here. Let me duplicate this, and then I need to fix the side chain on the compressor, because when you duplicate, it doesn't keep the side chain. And I'm going to take this and show you that it doesn't work for every instrument. A particular music progression does not work with every instrument. I'm going to take a key, trans keys. Let's see what this sounds like. Oh, that's pretty much the same. Screw that. Try this one. So if you notice, it sounds this progression actually very well suits this synth sound that I'm getting right now. Okay, but I know how to make it so which one? There we go. That sounded okay. Which one was it on that sounded good? We'll just leave it at that. Okay. I was trying to figure out which one I used before that sounded good, because I keep that in my project. So this is, as you can see, when I'm working with these synthesizers, what I'll do is I'll duplicate it, mute the original, and then tweak the next one so I can have copies of the old one, but I can also come up with new stuff. So I'm gonna switch this to the sampler here, the EXS, and I'm going to choose a horn here. No, I should do a guitar. That'll be very obvious here. So I'm just going to choose a classical acoustic guitar. So you notice it sounds like a good chord progression, but it doesn't fit this instrument at all. The instrument just sounds weird. Now, I know what this particular instrument is supposed to sound good with. It's supposed to sound good with stuff that you just go like this. Oops. And actually what I could do here is Yeah, let's keep what I did a second ago. Edit, redo, copy and drag, redo, delete. Here we go. Whoops, it switched it. It's no longer a guitar. Here we go. Where was I? Classical acoustic guitar. Here we go. So I know that if I get this note, and I duplicate and put it right there. And if I turn the release up really far, and then if I pull this down again, an octave, an octave, and just right there, I take the same one here and do the same thing. And then I'd want to EQ this because oops, there we go. So now I have this acoustic guitar that sounds good, but with the chords, it was sounding really, it was sounding like a whole bunch of stuff doing like a whole bunch of notes at once that weren't really sounding musical. So I could actually throw this off the bat. I've got a really good idea of what I could do with this. If I take a tremolo here and I just have it go. And then let's change the groove of this. And then if I turn on back the original one. So I don't like the fullness sound of the acoustic guitar because that's the clashing sound that you're hearing. That's why they're not sounding like they fit well together, because this one sounds too full and then this one sounds very bright. So what I need more here is a kind of brighter, plucky sound. So let's see if I could find that in the acoustic guitar here. I know 12 string is gonna sound brighter. Wow, that's very interesting. Pull that down there. Once again, this sounds too bright. There we go. And then I want to make this brighter because right now this one is standing on the acoustic guitar here is standing on top of my lead, and I want my lead to be the focus. I want the acoustic guitar to be in the background. So the first thing I do to pull this into the background is I would cut the highs, and I'll throw this in the background. And then get this one and boost it. So that's, please excuse all that clipping there. That's because my CPU is currently experiencing some strange peaks on one of the cores. So that's generally, you know, fitting the sound with the instrument is sometimes a difficult task. Wow, that's an example of when it doesn't sound good. Probably because this one is actually, yeah, it is a chord, so it's playing chords on my notes, except they're predefined chords, which means that they might not be in key, and you can't edit those chords unless you edit the instrument itself. So So there we go. This is where I wanted the acoustic guitar to be, and so this really shows you where this one fits, and why mixing is like a very key thing in the way you work. So right now, if I put this one on top, if I turn up the gain, it sounds like it's kind of on top, but if I pull this down and put it in the background just enough, it doesn't sit on top of it, but it accentuates the lead here. And if I take it out, it just sounds, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like this is really there because it's drowned out so much by the lead, but it accentuates it and adds a sort of depth. So, I've given you a lot of information in this video because this is essentially the two most intense videos that I was thinking that they're going to be like the most information when compared to my other videos when it comes to music theory, because I wasn't talking so much about theory and I was talking a lot about taking the theory and actually making it sound musical. So it's I did cover a lot of nothing in this, in the sense that you can't really take off a lot of solid facts from this, but you can take off a lot of ideas on how to experiment and come up with new stuff. So it just, there's quite a bit of variation you could do and stuff like that. But really it's all about, I usually start from a bass line and then work my way up, and that's how a lot of people start. But that if you have a chord progression you have in mind, or you have a lead or a melody you have in mind, then there's always a way to reverse that. You just choose your if you have a melody, you have your melody running like this. And then what you do is you find what would theoretically be my root note. Right now these two are at a fifth, so I could have a root note at no, these aren't at a fifth. What am I talking about? This is, here we go, 1, 2, 3, and then this one's just an octave down, so that one doesn't count. We have 1, 2, 3, and these ones are at a fifth difference, so that would probably mean that this is my root. And what do you know? It is G. If you look at my bass line, that did end up being my root here. And if I look at the chord progression, this is also the root, even though it's in the middle, it's not the bottom, because this is just an inverted G chord. This ended up being my root too. So it's all about finding a unity, and also at the same time, keep in mind that, as I've said in previous videos, rules are made to be broken. So so essentially what I have here is I have the chords and the bass line and the note sequence here, the melody, they all line up. And if you start to do contrasting things, like you have it, instead of this one, if you notice, is pretty much exactly the same. This upper note progression is pretty much exactly the same, except for I added a note down here. And all you have to do is move things around and see if they complement it or if they make it worse. If they complement it, then you could get some very interesting sounds by not having everything on the same notes. But it's much more difficult to work with that. So my suggestion is start by making sure that when you have something running, you're in a particular chord until you change the chord. So you have your bass line is going at G, so you'll be in a G chord for the entirety of the time the bass line's like that, and then the bass line will change to like F or something, and then you'll go change the chord to F, and your notes in your lead will bounce around in notes in the F chord. Now that said, if I go to window and then keyboard, I already talked about how you can have a major chord, and then you could have sustains, and then you could also go up here to have the major seventh. Oops, that's not the right. What am I doing here? 1, 2. Here we go. That's the major seventh. So essentially what I have here is I have this one, I have this one, I have this one, and then I have this one is less common. so it's less likely to use that one. But you'll see that I pretty much covered every single note here up the scale with this one chord, just different types of this one chord. So it's so actually that would probably explain what I was doing with those other ones. They're probably some sort of sustained chord. But anyway, you got a lot of options, and it just try to fit stuff into your main chord and your root chord that you've chosen for that particular part of the track. So you have your bass line running at a root note, so then everything else should be in that root chord. And you know, these I don't know for sure. Yeah, you notice if I brought that down an octave and I actually landed on one of the notes in my chord here. This one didn't. So you'll see how I added some variation there. That one landed in it. This one doesn't because it's the same as this one. And this one doesn't either. So I'm basically just adding variation, and it contrasts a little bit. And I could add even more variation. But then if I added more variation in this guitar here, by changing the notes, then things might start to step on each other, because you've already noticed here that I already said that this one lines up, this one doesn't, this one lines up, this one doesn't, and this one doesn't. So that means I already have these notes of variation. If I start to have a note of variation here, 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 and here also, due to this guitar, it'll start to sound like everything's stepping on each other. So I know this was a pretty long video, and I apologize for that, unless you guys like long videos. If you do, please let me know. But this is the end of the video right now. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover by way of music theory, and really, I wanted to get down the fundamentals of the previous videos and then talk about how they really communicate with each other and connect with each other. So you got here, you have note for the bass line, you have chord for the this is my lead, strangely enough, even though leads typically follow a melody. This one's actually following a chord pattern, but that's kind of something you see often in EDM anyway. And then you have this, which is more like an arpeggiated sequence. And so you have arpeggios, chords, notes, and stuff like that. And you could almost consider this the melody, but since I have chords underneath of it, this one would be the chords, and this one I'm considering the lead just because it's going to be the main thing that's going on, even though it's a chord with the melody on top. So yeah, that's it for this video. I showed you everything I wanted to really show you about structure of connecting everything there. And if you like this video, please feel free to like it. And comment down below, give me your opinions and what you think I should expand more on. And also, I'll try to get out some more videos here. From this point on, I don't have, I have the section titled as producing a track, except for it's not going to really be titled like my other videos were, because from now on, I'm just going to be posting, you've got the fundamentals down, so I'm just going to start going into more interesting topics, how you could start to be creative with music, with synthesizers. I've done a lot of stuff in these, like I went around and I changed the stereo on this one. In the previous video, I added a new, I actually created a synth from scratch. I just turned up the unison and then changed a couple other things. But what are those, and what do they do? I'm going to start getting into stuff like that, synth design, builds, drops, breaks, everything like that, how you can make really cool effects in the videos following. So essentially that means the fundamentals are over, and now we get to start going into the fun stuff and all the creative stuff, and how you could come up with new ways to look at things and create new ideas. So that's it, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.